on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
Everything changes so quickly, and places like Facebook platform, they turn on a sixpence, don't they? If you're not up to date with stuff, you're lost, really.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers, no more barriers, no one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome. It is the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Blatch.
And me, Mark Dawson. Hello.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm okay. Yes, not too bad. Just have a few technical gremlins, which I think I managed to iron out, so that's okay.
Hopefully, we can see and hear you. We have some Patreon supporters to welcome, which is now your job.
Yes, I just opened it up. So we have Michael Howell and Jeff Elkins. Michael Howell is, we don't know where Michael is, but Jeff Elkins is in North Carolina, USA. So thank you to Michael and Jeff for supporting the show, and keep an eye on your post box or your letterbox or wherever you get your mail from, because you'll be getting something in the post from Catherine quite soon.
If they're gold, I think.
Oh, yes, that's right, yeah.
Which I think will be Jeff, because I think that's when you have to give your address.
Yes, okay.
Which is why we don't see everyone's addresses. But the golds get something through the post, which is very exciting. Yes, confusingly, someone got it sent to James Blatch at their address the other day in somewhere in America, which there was some sort of admin error, which is very confusing. Anyway, good. Well, we had a little get together this week, didn't we? I came down to beautiful Wiltshire and lovely Salisbury, and we had a lovely dinner at Dawson Towers, which normally is like a sort of jokey name for someone who lives in a small detached, terraced house, but you actually do live in what is effectively a castle.
Not quite, yeah. We did have a nice dinner, and then the next day we had a round of golf, and it was given the weather has been pretty shocking so far in August in the UK. We did actually have a really beautiful day. The morning was lovely and warm and sunny. And
we tore up that course, right? We shattered we didn't shatter the course record, but.
So if you mean tore up, I mean leaving a lot of divots. Yes, that would be fair to say. But
or a couple.
Yeah, we played all right, didn't we? For a couple of very average older players who haven't been playing for very long. We didn't embarrass ourselves too much.
I think we were some of the younger players on the course that day.
Yes, probably we were that day. There were two very, very old ladies ahead of us, must be in their 70s. And as we teed off, I was a bit concerned we would go too fast for them, but actually that wasn't the case. They sped ahead of us. Yeah. So I don't know what that says about us. Probably that they were better than us.
No, it was very enjoyable, and we got a little bit of business discussed, as people do on the golf course. Made some decisions, and
that means it's tax deductible.
Yes, exactly. I have to check which card my wife paid for the hotel on. I will, so we're making some changes to Fuse, which is going to give us a bit more time to focus on that and our other businesses, which we monitor all the time. So a lot of monitoring, a lot of balls in the air when you've got effectively three businesses, SPF, Hello Books and Fuse Books, all running at the same time. One of the things we do with SPF, of course, is our foundation, which we along with Reedsy and quite a long list of other very generous benefactors, put together a scholarship fund for authors of any age, anywhere in the world, any background, who have talent but don't have the resources necessarily to get themselves started in this wonderful business that we're in. And one of those people is Michael Campling, who's a bit like us, Mark. He's no spring chicken. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that, but it's never too late, is it, to find some success in writing? So he was one of our scholarship winners. He's in the West Country, not too far from you, and he's been really successful. So that is just the best news we could ever have from the scholarship, from the SPF Foundations, for somebody to get back to us and say, look, I'm in the charts, I'm on the runway now, starting to see some income coming in. Thank you so much for your start, which is what Mikey did. So that is our interview today. Mike, I think we're going to go straight to him, if you don't mind, Mark. I can see you're already making notes about next week's show, and let's hear from Mike.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Mikey Campling, welcome to the Self-Publishing Show. Somebody from I was going to say just down the road. Newton Abbot isn't really just down the road from me in Huntingdon, but from a global point of view, we may as well be close neighbours.
Yeah.
It's in the West Country, is it not? It's Newton Abbot?
Yeah, so we're in Devon.
In Devon, lovely. Well, we're going on holiday this year because we're all basically confined to the UK this year, which is a lovely thing. So we're heading down your way. Don't ask me where.
Oh, great.
Somewhere near RAF Chivner, because I know the UK by disused RAF stations. So somewhere near RAF Chivner.
I was thinking you'd probably be interested here. We get, because we're quite low population density here, we get quite a few low flights coming over of helicopters and transport aircraft that come right over the house, so things rattle just about. So
excellent.
If you're a plane spotter, you'd enjoy it.
Sounds perfect. I'm looking forward to that already. Okay, Mikey, look, we're going to talk about you, your writing career, a little bit about the SPF Foundation as well. So let us start. Why don't you tell us a bit about your writing career, when that sort of started and got going? I'll try and summarise it a bit.
So yeah, it's something I wanted to do since I was very small, but it took me quite a while to actually start sitting down and really getting on with it. So I did the thing of getting up, before the rest of the household was awake when the kids were small, sort of get up early and try and do stuff. And I just started really, really short, doing flash fiction so that it could be completed. And I thought I'll set myself, a goal of creating lots of little bits of flash fiction. And it just got me out of bed and starting to put pen to paper. Literally, it wasn't typing, I was writing longhand. And that kind of got me started.
Was the aim of that to get you started, to get you into the habit of writing, or did you have a purpose in mind for this flash fiction?
I thought I'd be able to do something with it eventually, but this is kind of before the self-publishing revolution had happened. So at that time, it was more just to kind of show to myself I could do it, I think.
And what sort of thing were you writing? How many words, by the way, makes up sort of flash fiction?
Gosh, this is a lot of years ago, but I set myself a sort of hard limit on each one, which I think might have even been like 100 words, something like that.
Oh, really short.
So long. Really mega short, so that I would concentrate on trying to tell a whole story and just sort of really concentrate on what was going into it, giving it a beginning, a middle, and end.
Wow,
it's something I'd recommend people to try if they're struggling to face a whole novel.
Yeah.
You could,
well, I look back at my wordy first drafts. I couldn't get somebody out of bed in less than 100 words. I have got better at that since, but that's a good discipline to have for storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be 100. I think is that a drabble or something, I think they call them. But you can set whatever limit you like, 200, 250. And it's quite a good thing to do something like, say if you do 500 words and then retell the same story again in half as many words. That's quite a fun little thing to do. See if you can get all the story elements in, and it just makes you cut things out.
Yeah. Okay, so you were doing this, you were getting up before the children even and getting used to this writing and giving yourself these tasks. And then what? And what era was this? You say pre-revolution, so pre-2009, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not quite sure when, because like a lot of people, then I went into doing the novel, and it took me several years to finish that because I was doing it at odd moments, when I wasn't sort of looking after kids or whatever. I was lucky I had a chance to be a full-time dad when the kids were small, because my wife was working full-time, and because we live in quite a remote place in a tiny village, it just made sense if one of us did the childcare. So I started doing that, and then you try and grab moments, when the kids are otherwise occupied. So that did take me a long, long time to do my first novel, and I tried to get that traditionally published. And in those days, you could submit straight to publishers, and I tried that. And in fact, in those days, you could even get feedback, and somebody very kindly sent me a long page of feedback on what needed improving. And it was like the best lesson in writing I'd had.
That's sort of editorial assessment you can pay good money for.
Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't happen now, but I realised that this person was right, what they'd said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm far too heavy-handed, like most new writers are, and it wasn't really kind of in the moment and so on. And so I set to rewriting it. And then I was still aiming to shop it around, and I discovered it can take like a year for somebody to get back to you in the traditional publishing world.
Wow.
While I was still doing all that, I discovered, things like podcasts and so on self-publishing, and the old Johnny, Sean and Dave and things like that, kind of opened my eyes quite a lot. People like Garrett Robinson as well. So I was watching things on YouTube and listening to podcasts, and started to think, well, I could do this. And I published that and then turned that into a trilogy with a prequel to go with it. So I could try and give that away as a lead magnet. And this is still quite a lot of years ago. And I've been a bit guilty of sort of falling into things along the way. It seems like a good idea at the time. So I've sort of hopped around all different kind of genres as things came up.
What was your first novel?
It was kind of, it doesn't, I wouldn't do it now. It doesn't talk about not to market. It's hard to categorize. I used to be a primary school teacher, and so I was thinking of kind of kids towards the young adult range. And it's a kind of time slip historical novel. It's a trilogy that takes place over 5,000 years, and it shoots backwards and forwards in time. So each chapter is from a different period.
Okay.
And there's a kind of a unifying portal through time that unifies them. And some people like it, but some people love it if they can find it. But it doesn't. It's not a time travel sci-fi adventure.
Right.
Because there's no people zipping backwards and forwards.
We talk about this from time to time on the podcast, and it's a shame really, because it can be very inventive and imaginative books, but if they aren't easy to summarize genre-wise, that is always going to be more of a challenge to market, particularly for self-published authors. I think big trad authors from well-known authors with big traditional publishing houses do have that scope and that freedom, because the marketing effort that goes behind it can overcome that visibility issue that we have at this level. You kind of, unfortunately, you need to fit into some fairly easily identifiable genres to make it easier for yourself. Not impossible, but make it easier.
Yeah, it is hard. And then I've done quite a bit of sci-fi. Again, opportunities came up, like Craig Martell does these really good expanding universe anthologies where he lets newer writers come in with big name authors, and I've been in 3 of those.
Wow.
Had short stories. Yeah.
Excellent. That's really good.
It's a really nice experience.
How does that process work, Mikey? Do you reach out to, you contact Craig?
No, he, in the 20 books to 50K group, he would sometimes put out a call for submissions, and they are doing various collections and anthologies. So it's worth checking with what they're doing, because they are doing other genres apart from sci-fi now. So Craig did a thriller one recently, and it's worth keeping an eye on those. But yeah, he sort of sets out various clear criteria, and then you just got to do your best to hit those goals and put in the story that fits.
How long are those stories?
They are sort of 8,000 to 10,000, around there. So pretty short and sweet, but it's worth doing. And then I took one of those and used it as a prequel to a little sort of colonization serial, because Craig's very good that he will put a book in KU for however many terms he sets out at the beginning. It's all made very clear, and he gives you your rights back. So any work you put into creating a story for him, you can then use later. You can publish yourself. So I've gone on and used those stories myself later on.
Yeah. So at some point, you then start thinking, right, I can perhaps write a novel that's going to be, or a series. Is that what you came to think about?
Yeah, in the end, I decided it was time to sort of be a bit more hard-headed about it, I think, and a bit more deliberate. And I've loved classic mysteries since I was very young, because when I was a teenager, I was a keen reader, but we didn't have YA books then. So you kind of went straight into adult books. And I was introduced to Agatha Christie back then and loved those, and, Sherlock Holmes stories and so on. Got into those. And it was something I'd almost been a bit hesitant to do it, because when something's important to you, you kind of think, am I good enough to stack up against those people, but I took my time over it, and I put quite a lot of thought into who I wanted the characters to be, what I wanted them to be like, what kind of tone I wanted, where it would kind of sit on the scale of things. Because in mysteries, it's a pretty broad church. You can go from sort of through to the thriller end, the police procedural end. You've got the very cozy, very sweet kind of end.
Yeah.
And I kind of decided where I wanted to be.
That's a really important decition to avoid confounding expectations of readers and getting bad reviews. If somebody who's used to cozy mystery reads a rather gory scene in your book, it can backfire on you. Definitely,
and I think doing that bit of, I guess in any other field you just call it market research, but looking at books and thinking about where I wanted to slot into there, and I wasn't sort of purely going by the numbers. I kind of was really thinking about what I really wanted to write, what I really wanted to spend my time on working on, because I was sure it was going to be a series of several novels that, from the outset. I guess I'd learned that you want not just an idea for a story or for a book, but for a series, and then something to hang it on, kind of hook to hang it on. And so it took me a while before I got going with it. And then I started fairly gently by experimenting and just writing one piece at a time, one chapter at a time, really, and putting it on my blog. And because by that time, I'd got a newsletter list, a mailing list of about, say, 5,000 people, but they joined me for other things. They joined me for sci-fi, for instance, on the whole. So I've done some other sci-fi stuff as well, a bit of a sort of cyberpunk thing that I started. Did a couple of books of those. And people seem to like it. They seem to be responding in the way that I hoped they would respond.
Okay.
They seem to take to the character, which was very important, really, for me. So I wanted people to get that idea.
This is you testing things really on your list, but effectively giving them the first book and in Charles Dickens style in installments.
Yeah, but I didn't give it all away like that. I sort of did it as an experiment, and because people were saying, "Oh yeah, I'm quite enjoying this," I kept going with it, and I got to the point where I thought, I don't want to be stopping to share this now. I just want to get on.
Yeah.
I got into it, and I just focused on that.
Well, I suppose if people are waiting to find out who done it, they're going to buy the book.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I think I was fairly clear from the out. I didn't want to disappoint people, so I sort of said from the outset, this is my work in progress, to see what you think of it, but I'm not going to share it all necessarily, just to see how it goes. And then I explained to people that I'd be cracking on with it.
And when you said you were looking around doing your market research, as it were, what other authors were you inspired by? Yeah,
I was thinking about, not so much in subject, but in kind of tone. So I was kind of thinking of people like the Anne Cleeves, who've the Shetland series, because there you've got something where the sense of place is important, the characters are very important, and I wanted the sense of place to be important as well. But I live kind of on the edge of Dartmoor, and I thought it's quite an atmospheric kind of place to live. And I thought, I don't know if anybody's done it. We've got quite a lot of Scottish detectives and, people all over the place. There's ones in Wales and so on. And people talk about Tartan Noir and things, don't they? And I kind of thought, I don't know if anybody's done Dartmoor. So I thought it's even got kind of links with, the Hound of the Baskervilles. So I thought I'm here, and I thought I can make it authentic.
Okay.
And that was something else that I thought was important. I thought I want something I can write about with authenticity, because I think people can tell. People can kind of smell out if somebody's authentic. I don't quite know how, but they seem to.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's why Louise Ross writes about her northeast that she lives in, and Barry Hutchinson as JD Kirk writes about his area of Scotland, and Mark has based his books on areas that he knows. So that is, as you say, it is possible, I think, in this day and age to use a bit of a Google aerial views and Google research to immerse yourself in parts of the world you haven't been to. But there is something about that intimate familiarity with the landscape that enables you, I suppose, to weave it into the story a bit more authentically.
Yeah, and it goes into the characters as well. So they're kind of the two main characters who are like amateur sleuths, Dan and Alan, they're called, and they're kind of amalgams of bits of my personality or people I've known well, perhaps, and they kind of merged into there. So to me, they're kind of very real characters, and I think that kind of comes across. I think that's one of the things that people like.
So you got book one done. And what was your sort of launch strategy? Did you already have books 2 and 3 outlined or ready to go at the same time? Or
No, it was very much put it out and see what happens, really.
Okay.
With that, I'm afraid. I'd got the first one and it was very short at that stage. But I did put it out and it seemed to be doing okay. And I discovered that people were willing to sort of part with money for it. And so I cracked on with the next one, making sure it was a full-length novel. And it was about that time that I came across the foundation. I'd heard about it before, but I never applied.
This is the SPF Foundation.
Sorry. I knew about it, so I actually went to have a look and just see, when the application window was. And it was just good timing, really, for me, that I thought I kind of knew I had something that could work. But at that stage, because a lot of my other books, they'd been harder to market, it was a question of needing a bit of a leg up, really, so I could get away from the homemade covers and that kind of thing. So the SPF Foundation was a lifesaver there, really. It was fantastic.
So what did you actually spend the money on? I guess we should say thank you straight away to Readsy.com, who are big partners for us, and lots of other individual authors who help out with the foundation. But Readsy, and I'm a big Readsy user. I've used them for editing all the way through my book. Well, in the last year anyway, I found 2 very important editors for me. So I guess Readsy was an important port of call for you.
Absolutely, and a huge vote of thanks to Reedy and to the SPF Foundation and to Mark's wife who helped choose me, I think, and to Mark Recklow, who was the guy who saved me, because I didn't quite make the cut on the first one, and then Mark came along and offered another place, and suddenly I had an email saying, by the way, you could just about get this foundation. And
fantastic! We love Mark Recklow, who's our resident now in Malta. I must go and visit him soon when the flights get going again. I'd love to catch up with Mark, but he's been a wonderful supporter of the foundation. So that's great. So you got onto reading, you got covers done, I guess. Yeah,
that was my sort of first priority. But the other thing was I did find an editor, because I had this second novel pretty much ready, and I wanted to. Was that the third one by that stage? Anyway, I had a novel that was in need of an edit that could benefit from them being released much faster. So I used the money pretty wisely, I think, to get a really good designer that I felt I could work really well with. And he's done 4 covers for me now, a guy called Patrick Knowles. And he's there on Readsy.
Excellent. And what was your release then? So you did release book 1 by itself.
Yeah. So once I'd got the
that was a study covers, in stone.
Yes, that's a study in stone. So there've been several since. I've got Patrick to do all the covers for me, and Readsy did make that very easy. It made it easy to look through everybody's portfolios. and sort of check out their profiles, see what they've done. And I'd suggest people spend quite a bit of time looking through the kind of covers that people have created and sussing them out a bit.
Okay. And up until this point, had you made any money? Had any of your books been commercially successful? Because this is your bid, really, to make this. That's the whole point of the foundation, really, is for you to find a commercial foundation.
Not really kind of long term. There were things that seemed like they were going to be okay. I did like some sci-fi comedy as well. I did 4 books in that series, but things like would make money for a while, and then I wasn't in a position to sort of capitalize on things. I didn't know enough about advertising, and they just died away after a bit.
Okay.
So it wasn't sustainable, and that was the difference here, really.
So the Devonshire Mysteries come along, and has that given you some success?
Yeah, it's been good, and I think it's still got a long way to go. It's been nice having the same designer throughout to sort of give them a nice look and feel that matches. And I've gone wide with them actually at the moment for quite a while. That's the way I kind of chose. And the first one is out as a perma-free at the moment.
Yeah, I noticed that. So that's the old trick of putting it at 0 on places where you can put it at 0, like Barnes & Noble and Kobo, and then telling Amazon if they're asking them if they'll match it, which they do. So you've got book 1 at perma-free. Books 2, 3, and 4 look like they're $4.99 in US dollars, and you're getting some read through between them. And this is now profit making, should we say?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I think you've got to keep experimenting. I mean, the other part of the foundation, of course, is the course. And so I've spent quite a while on the Ads for Authors course and been trying things out, and I test things out for a while, and it depends how busy I am with actual writing as well. But I am going to be going back to that and revisiting it, and I'll be looking at the pricing again, because I think certainly the last one I did, it's really quite long. It's quite a thick book, and I think it could be priced a bit higher. I mean, I think you get a lot less read through with a perma-free,
right?
For sure, because some of those people are just speculative.
Yeah,
they're just picking it up in passing, and they may read it or not. But yeah, it seems to be doing okay, and it's a lot less work doing something as a perma-free if you just put it up, because you can then use some other sites like Fussy Librarian and ENT and all those things, e-reader News Today, things like that. And
what about
to boost?
Sorry, Mikey. And what about paid ads? Are you running paid ads to the books now?
I've recently been using BookBob ads quite a bit, and I've just held back on that for the moment because I had a e-reader News Today thing the other day, and I just wanted to sort of cut the ads for a bit. But they're good because they go through across all the different platforms, and they do take a lot of testing. You kind of have to know a bit what you're doing and be prepared to test, because there's a huge difference between finding the right authors to target and finding the wrong ones. And you can get a really good click-through rate on finding the right targets. And they are people who are looking for books, often for bargains. They like sort of the 99-cent and free books. But yeah, it's hard to know the conversion. Oh, it's impossible, really, isn't it? You kind of guess, I guess. But yeah, I've certainly done. I've done, particularly with looking at the course. I've done Facebook ads. I've done Amazon ads, the MS ads.
Great.
Over the time,
So you've got these 4 in the Devonshire. Is it the same DI or?
Yeah, he's actually he's an amateur sleuth.
Oh yes, you said yes, an amateur sleuth. Which is almost a cozy mystery trope, isn't it, rather than a more sort of procedural. They're towards the cozy end. Okay, but they're not quite. Everything's tea and scones, it's not Agatha Raisin or whatever.
Yeah, it's not quite that. And I think hopefully the covers get that across, that
Yeah.
they
look a bit
towards the
darker.
Yeah. So a lot of the very cozy ones are illustrated covers as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't want them to look like thrillers, and people expecting lots of graphic violence and so on, which is nothing wrong with that, but it's just not what these books are.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got these 4. What are your plans in the future?
I want to do another novel, which I'm just sort of sketching out ideas for at the moment. But in between, I'm doing another little project, which is for current readers of that series, which I'm going to do as a free thing, and it's a bit of an experiment again. And it's going to be a mystery told through a series of emails. So fans will know the 2 main characters, so that the sleuth and his sidekick, and we're imagining that one of them isn't there, and so they are receiving emails as if they were the character.
Oh,
see what I mean?
okay.
So it's a bit like in the Hound of the Baskervilles, Watson sends reports to Sherlock Holmes, but in letters, of what's going on. So it's a bit like that. So that Alan, who's his sort of faithful sidekick, is sending a series of emails, which people will get in as near real time as I can make it.
Okay.
So they'll be getting it by an autoresponder that I'll just have to set up, and then they'll hopefully feel quite involved in the story, that they're getting these updates as little bites of mystery over.
This feels like it might be something you've picked up from your teacher days, where you had to be a little bit imaginative about engaging your audience, in your case your pupils.
I think it probably does, it does affect how I approach things a bit, in that when I was teaching, trying to get kids to read was a very important thing to me, and trying to get kids to write as well. I did a lot of stuff with that, and getting them engaged, which kids love to do. They love to write stories and things, and they love to hear stories as well, on the whole. So yeah, perhaps that's nobody's ever said that to me before, so that's quite an interesting thing to think about. Yeah.
Well, it's been great to see this, and I'm just looking through your books on Amazon. I think they look really nice, I have to say.
Oh, thank you.
And it's a tricky thing to do, to get that cover that isn't the illustrated cozy, but also isn't necessarily the killer in the cabin in the woods type, thing where you're going to expect a few slit throats. But I think you pulled it off. This is becoming quite a popular genre. I mean, there's people writing, I know, in the Fens, and various parts of the country seem to be being grabbed by authors. But you've got your little bit there with a bit of Sherlock Holmes legacy there as well. So that's great.
Yeah, and I think it helps as well. We've kept some little common elements going through it as well. So there's sort of a nice landscape bit with a bit of depth to it. So we often have a path that kind of takes your eye into it,
right? And
things like the birds. We've got different birds in each cover, and it was really fun putting them together. And I think it helps working with the designer if you've put quite a lot of thought into exactly the kind of place you want to fit in the market beforehand. If you're kind of thinking about the tone that you want to come across, because it's very easy to sort of look at somebody else's cover and say, that's a really nice cover, I want one like that.
Yeah.
But it has to be kind of comparable.
Yeah.
It has to say, it's kind of got one job really, and that's to kind of scream its content at you.
Yes.
So this is in this genre.
Absolutely.
This is what you're going to get.
It's got to be crystal clear, and there's no point in having a pretty, brilliant cover if it doesn't do that one job it's got to do.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And the final word just on the foundation, Mikey, because other people will be listening to this podcast and thinking that they might have a think about applying for it. This is obviously something that has made a difference to your career.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been stellar really, and ongoing as well. Because one of the great things about the course is having access to Mark's course is that I can go back to it, and also things keep getting updated, which is like gold dust really, because everything changes so quickly, and places like Facebook platform, they turn on a sixpence, don't they?
Yeah.
And if you're not up to date with stuff, you're lost really. So I mean, one of my next plans is to go back in and review a lot of the course content and look through things, and then go back, think about my pricing, and work out how I can best approach it. Because the perma-free thing's interesting, but I am wondering about going back now and trying out more paid ads to go to put a paid book.
Yes,
book
$1.99 or $2.99 is quite a good spot, I think. Okay, well, that's great. Well, funny enough, you should say that. I'm about to, after this interview, record sessions on dynamic creative in Facebook ads, which is going to go into the Facebook ads for authors course soon. So always adding material and always updating, as you say.
Yeah.
Well, Mikey, thank you so much indeed for joining us. I can't wait to get down to Devon and explore some of these countries, hopefully with not as many murders as are contained, no doubt, in your books. But just like
nothing too gory.
Slightly quiet holiday would be ideal. That's brilliant. Well, good luck. You have to come back and tell us how you're doing, maybe in a year or so's time, and we'll revisit the foundation, and hopefully you'll just be going from strength to strength. Yeah, onwards and upwards. I really appreciate everything that's been done, from SPF and the foundation, and all being fantastic. So thank you very much.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer. There you go. So I was very pleased to speak to Mike. It was just before we went down to Devon, sort of his part of the world, and he was right. There was lots of low-flying military aircraft to enjoy, which he noticed outside his window. So yeah, really good. If you want to know more about the foundation, if you go to selfpublishingformula.com, you'll see SPF Foundation up there on the top right, and there is a list. I'm not going to say them all because I'll miss somebody else, because there's a list of people who donate and create that fund, and we'll do some specific stuff on the foundation closer to the sort of end of the year, which is when we tend to select and choose for the next year. Right. Well, I'm excited because tomorrow we're going to SPF author Dave Gledhill, who writes books like mine, sort of about military RAF aviation themed books. But he's the real deal. He was a backseater in the F4 Phantom, a fast jet here in the UK, an American fast jet actually here in the UK. And he has subsequently bought a Tornado aircraft, an old Tornado, which is a twin engine fast jet bomber, an amazing aircraft actually. Saw lots of service in the Gulf War and other conflicts, and he's converted it into a flight simulator. And he invited me about 2 years ago, and I'm very bad at actually accepting these invites and doing something about it. But I said to him, do you know what, Dave? Me and my boy William are turning up to Lincolnshire tomorrow, about an hour and a half north of here. So I'll take some pictures of what Dave's done, but I'm fascinated to see what he's done and how much fun this is going to be.
Yeah, that sounds that's got your name all over it. I'm surprised it's taken you 18 months to get up there. I suppose it has been a pandemic, as James coughs again. James hasn't got COVID. If he has got COVID, I've got it now because he came up coughing and spluttering on Monday. But it's just an allergy, isn't it? Please tell me it's just an allergy.
I don't know what. It's a sort of head cold, and I think William's got it now because he said he stopped hearing yesterday, and that happened to me about 2 weeks ago. My ears suddenly stopped working. So some sort of head cold going around. Yes, so I think it's a fun thing to do, and we'll see how we get on with Dave. And I've read one of his books; they're really good. This is a man who writes what he knows about, which is not a bad thing. I guess he enjoys writing it, and he isn't chosen to write in genres he's uncomfortable with. He's going for what he knows, which is a good thing to do. Right, I think that's probably it, Mark, for this week. We've got our foundation winner, Mikey, to thank very much indeed, and thank all the sponsors of the foundation for keeping that going. More about that, as I say, later in the year. We've got some great interviews coming up in the next few weeks. But for now, all that remains for me to say is a goodbye from him.
And a goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/self-publishing show. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with The Self-Publishing Show.